Are you struggling to understand self-publishing, but curious if it might be the right path for you? If so, you're in luck, because today I'm interviewing Alexa Bigwarfe, the founder and CEO of Write, Publish, Sell and the Women in Publishing Summit. Alexa is breaking everything down for us, and together we're leaving no publishing stone unturned. Hello and welcome to the Speculative Fiction Writing Made Simple podcast. I'm your host, Heather Davis. I'm a book coach, developmental editor, and fellow storyteller. And this is the show that's all about how to brainstorm, write, edit, publish, and sell a powerful speculative fiction novel. And maybe just change the world too. And as I said, today I'm sitting down with the brilliant Alexa Bigwarfe. Let me tell you a little bit about her just so you can get super excited for this interview. Alexa is an author, writing coach, and publishing consultant who helps writers turn their ideas into impactful books. A multi-published author herself who understands the creative highs and hurdles of the writing journey, Alexa is passionate about helping authors stay motivated, build writing habits, and push through doubt to bring their stories to life. She is also, of course, the founder of Write, Publish, Sell and the Women in Publishing Summit, where she supports thousands of writers each year. Alexa, thank you so much for being on the show. I am super excited to chat with you today about publishing pathways and especially self-publishing.
Thank you so much for having me. This is one of my favorite topics.
Well, it is an absolute pleasure to have you here. So let's go ahead and dive into the questions. So you are the founder and CEO of Write, Publish, Sell, and you also founded the Women in Publishing Summit, which is where I first came into your universe. I love the summit.
Thank you.
But for listeners who might not know who you are yet, or who might not know, what those two are, could you please explain what they are and who they serve?
Absolutely. So Write, Publish, Sell is a company I created back in the day just to basically have a place to help people who were only a few steps behind me in the self-publishing process. I love to teach and I love to help others. And as I started publishing my books, people were coming to me and saying, how are you doing this? How can I do this? All that kind of stuff. So I started helping people and I just built a business around it and started creating a lot of content on the blogs and on YouTube and all of those places because if you're doing it right, this is a very expensive journey. And I want to be very upfront about that with everybody who is serious about self-publishing a book. You've got to have a budget for it because you cannot go out into the world with just any old cover, a non-edited book and all of those if you're serious about making a living or any money from your books. So I wanted to make sure that people had access to resources that were no charge to help them in this stuff so that they could save their money for the important things in their budget. Mm-hmm. And then because I love teaching and because I love talking to people and I was doing all these interviews and I decided it was around the time that the summits, the very first summits were starting to happen back in, I think the first one I attended was in like 2014 and I launched mine in 2015. And very quickly realized I had just tried to, it was this massive, I had 97 speakers. It was like,
oh, wow.
All these topics, everything about anybody who wanted to write anything. It was very like, who's my target audience? I don't know. Anyone who's ever wanted to write a poem to people, so it was everybody. And so over the next couple years, I really, I was also attending these different writing summits. And what I realized was that there were very few women represented on the different panels and as guest speakers and all of these in these conferences, and even less diversity. If there was a woman, she wasn't diverse, So I just was like, you know what? I'm working with women all day, every day. And there's so many amazing voices and experts out in the field. I'm going to start a place, no shade to men, like we have nothing against the men, but there's a lot of places that already exist for them. And so this environment was created to bring women together in the same space where we could learn from women. Because the reality is we talk to each other differently. We have different kind of strategies and fears. And, so it allows us to have these really big, deep conversations where we're in it. And, we do great training as well, great really workshops and things like that. But we can get into the motivation and the inspiration and the encouragement and support that only women can do for each other. And we have some great men who come and attend with us, and they know what they're getting into and they love it, and we don't shame them. We are happy to have them there. But we try to keep all of our speakers and presenters women, or those who identify as women.
I love that. I think the first Women in Publishing Summit that I attended was maybe 7 or 8 years ago. And I just remember being overwhelmed by I was like, oh my gosh, my people finally, right? And it was just such a wonderful experience having so many professional women in this industry there, and giving all of the great information that they have learned over all the years. And I found it. So if you're out there listening and you have never attended Women in Publishing, it's just a wonderful summit. It's so brilliant. I love it. I love it.
Thank you. And if you've been around for 7 or 8 years, you've seen how much it's evolved over the years.
Oh, it has.
Too. So
yeah.
last year, we're taming it down just a little bit this next year, because it got a little bit out of control. Last year, we had 4 Zoom rooms running simultaneously for 5 days in a row, all day, and it was like, I can't do this anymore.
That is so much. I mean, I recently just did my first summit, which is nowhere near the magnitude of what you guys do, right? It was like pre-recorded things, and it ran all day, but only one at a time. And I just had suddenly so much respect for, because I was thinking about you guys doing everything live. I'm like, I do not know how Alexa does that. Like,
no. But it's fun, and people love it, and they really get to feel like they are. My goal was to make it feel as much like being at a real event as possible.
And it does feel like that. Yeah. It really does. Yeah. I love that about it.
Winning.
Yay. All right. So what led you? So you already said, was there a particular moment of clarity when you were like, Write, Publish, Sell as a company has to exist? Or was it just everyone's coming to you and asking, you're like, wait, maybe this is a business idea?
Yeah, I mean, really, that's what happened. So I published, so the first book I came into was one on grief and loss, because we had lost a child. And that was a very cathartic and healing and wonderful experience. And I encourage anyone who is having a hard time to use writing as a tool. You don't have to publish a book, but write. There is just something so powerful about writing your story and using that. But after that, the surprising thing that happened to me was how much I just fell in love with the process of self-publishing, because in my former world, I was an intelligence officer in the Air Force and then worked in counterterrorism and homeland security. And I like solving puzzles. And as anyone who has ever self-published a book knows, it is an enormous puzzle that you have to find a lot of different pieces, and sometimes they don't fit together, and sometimes you're working from 2 different puzzles and don't realize it, and like it's a wild process. So I also had 3 children at the time, and I was building a mommy blog and all this kind of stuff, and I started anthologies were becoming a big deal with the mom bloggers. So I participated in a few of those, and I became friends with other bloggers. And my friend Carrie and I decided to co-author a book called Lose the Cape: Realities for Busy Modern Moms and Strategies to Survive. It's a mouthful of a name. And we launched that into a bunch of different things, a podcast and more books and all of that. But after the second one came out, and because I was talking in different groups about Sunshine After the Storm, and because I had brought in some really big names in the grief community to be a part of Sunshine After the Storm, people took notice of me in the grief publishing world. Yeah. And so in the beginning, it was moms who had heard about me through the grief world and wanted to know how to publish a book and could I help them. And so I just started learning how to do all the things except for covers. I am not a cover designer. I will never design a cover. That's not my know your weaknesses. And that one, I was like, it would look like a 10-year-old made it if I made the cover. But I taught myself how to format books. I started getting involved learning everything in the world I could learn about what at the time was called Create Space. And then Amazon moved Create Space into what's now called Kindle Direct Publishing. And I got a membership with the Independent Book Publishers Association. I started going to conferences. I just started immersing myself in learning everything that I could, because now I had multiple people working with me to get their books published. And around that point in time, so a little piece of the story here, and that is my daughter who passed away, she was an identical twin. So her
Mhm.
twin sister was very medically fragile for quite a while. She spent 84 days in the NICU.
Mm.
We had all kinds of therapies and all things. She came home with the G tube, and we had to feed her through a bottle to her stomach. It was
Oh,
wild.
yeah.
And so going back to work wasn't an option for me for that first year. And then after that, I was like, I don't ever want to go back to work for someone else again, especially not while I have kids daycare age, because it doesn't even make sense. I mean, just the cost to have three kids
Hmm.
in daycare, I'd have to make a crazy salary to make that worth it. So I was looking for some ways to bring in some income at home, started with the blog. Then I was like, okay, there's a lot of people trying to write books here. Look how many people are coming to me and asking for help and support. I think I can do this as a
Yeah.
business. And so I did. And it's just grown and evolved. We just passed our 12th year anniversary in business. So, it's good. And it's exciting because I had no idea that only like it's a crazy small percentage of companies past the 10-year point. Those stats may start
Wow.
to change now with all the digital businesses and depending on the
Yeah.
threshold and all that kind of stuff. But anyway, that's not what we're here to talk about today.
Still, that's amazing. And it's amazing that you've been out there for this long, literally helping people. To me, very often publishing it's really about helping someone achieve a lifelong dream, right? Because
Yes.
so many
Yes.
people, it is like the thing that's on their bucket list. You know what I mean? It's like that book that I've always wanted to write since I was 7 years old, right? So
Yeah.
that's a pretty cool thing to be helping people do for the, past 10, 12 years. It's
It
amazing.
is. And it's a feeling that never gets old. I mean, when someone launches their book on that book launch day, every time, it's never gotten boring to me. That it's just one of the most exciting experiences ever. I just got the opportunity to go. Finally, one of my clients is local. Like most of my clients are all around the world, but
Yeah.
finally, I had one in Charlotte, which is about an hour away, a few years ago that I went to, but this was the first one right here in my hometown in Columbia. I got to go to her book launch party, and it was just
Oh, so
it was
fun.
so great to be there and support her and be a part of it. So, yeah, it is. But this is where, when it comes to self-publishing, you have to I need a word that rhymes with dreamer so that this sounds cooler, but you kind of have to decide if you're a dreamer that just wants to, um, get that book in, just write a book just to
Yeah.
say you did it, just get it out there and that's done. Or whether it would be fun to say something like screamer, I don't know. Something like, is there a word that I can, or if you're that person who wants, or if you're a big dreamer that wants to like actually build a business with books.
Yes.
And self-publishing can work for both,
Hmm.
but you have to remember that the level, like to become one of the big names in the industry, or even you don't even have to be a big name. I know plenty of authors that I'm sure none of you listening have heard of. Jenny Proctor, unless you're into the rom-com. If you love rom-coms, you know who Emma St. Clair, Jenny Proctor, some of these names in this group. But you probably heard of Allie Hazelwood because she's gone more mainstream. But maybe you've never heard of any of those names. And that's my point, because they are killing it, making a
Yeah.
lot of money as authors, and nobody outside of their genre knows who they are, right? So
Yeah.
you can do it, but you have to treat it like a business, and you have to be willing to hire experts and do things the right way and all of that. So
Yeah.
that's one of my biggest passions with helping people through Write, Publish, Sell, is giving them the tools and the resources to publish professionally, to publish like a pro. So I don't know what kind of questions you want to go for.
Yeah, yeah. So before we dive in, I have a lot of questions about that actually, because it's such an important topic that I think folks who want to self-publish don't fully understand. So I definitely have a lot of questions around that entrepreneurial idea and like, what do we really need to spend money on and that type of thing. But first, just in case anyone, just they're not completely familiar with all the terms, could you just give us a brief introduction to traditional versus hybrid versus self-publishing? Like what is the difference and how does it benefit the writer depending on the path?
100%. And also, my freebie actually will go into a little more detail. I have a link for you to share with your audience later that will
Nice.
give a breakdown. It's like a 7-page guide that gives a breakdown of the different types. But there's 3 primary ways that you can look at to publish a book. The cool thing about publishing is that it's evolving, and there are so many ways you can get there, but the 3 primary ways are the ones that you all are familiar with, the traditional publishing. So that's the books that are featured in the airport anyway, I'm not going to sidetrack myself. And in the Barnes and Noble and, on the billboards in New York and Times Square and, the James Pattersons and Patricia Cornwells, and I'm dating myself here. The Stephen King's, those are names pretty much. Brene Brown, like the big Oprah's book club, most
Yeah.
likely going to be traditionally published, right? So traditional publishing, to get to that level, you almost always require an agent. And a lot of time and effort goes in that process of querying and finding agents. Almost no big publishers allow you to go straight to them. You have to go through an agent. An agent will get a sample of your work depending on whether you're fiction or nonfiction will depend on what you send to the agent. And we could spend days talking about that. But the one thing I want people to know, though, is that there are many small and medium traditional publishers that do not require an agent. So you can submit what's called an unsolicited manuscript. Basically, they'll have guidance on their website. So you can look for different publishers that are traditional that don't require an agent, or you can go the agented route. But keep in mind, working with a small publisher has its ups and downs, right? So anyway, traditional, you don't pay for the publishing. Now, where you are going to pay is for writing classes, for any organizations that you join, for getting your book edited. Yes, you're going to get your book edited before you start querying agents because they don't have enough time to look at books that are not meeting the standard at the beginning. So you want to make sure you put a good foot forward, building your platform, growing, your audience and all those types of things. All right, so that's traditional. Self-publishing is the completely opposite spectrum. So you are publishing yourself. You own all the rights. You are the director. You are the publisher. You get all the royalties. You're in complete control. However, what I do want to say is self-publishing does not mean doing it all by yourself. It just means that you are the owner of everything and you get to make the decisions. You still want to be working with people that are professionals, editors, graphic designers and book formatters, book cover designers, probably someone to help you at least start your book marketing type of efforts, because writing books and marketing books are 2 very different skill sets. So I don't want people to ever think, well, I'm self-publishing, I'm not going to spend any money on publishing my book. You can totally do that. Amazon has everything laid out for you. Ingram Spark has templates, has all kinds of things. You can figure out how to DIY everything, and you will not sell any books because it just doesn't look right. People know that cover looks weird. So that does not look like I expect it to look. And then when you open up a book and it's poorly formatted, or God forbid, there's a bunch of typos and errors in the first few pages, you're done. So it's worth your time, energy, and money to do that part right. And then hybrid. So hybrid falls into a large camp. A true hybrid press should have an editorial process, meaning They require you to submit your manuscript and query and all of that. So they're not just publishing everyone who will pay to be published. That's called a vanity press. A vanity press will take, if you're willing to pay them, they will take your book. They're not going to edit it. They'll do a cover. They'll do the formatting. They will publish it out into the world. You probably have to buy a lot of books. They'll still pay, take royalties and all kinds of stuff, but they're not really marketing it. They're not really doing a whole lot on your behalf. A true hybrid press operates like a traditional publisher does, but it's a partnership relationship. There is a fee for services. And the reason this is because it costs a lot of money to do a book right. And most people who wind up in the hybrid route are there because they don't want to do the work of self-publishing, and they don't want to do the work or wait the time it takes to do traditional publishing. So they basically want to be able to come in and have someone else do all the hard work for them, be published by a publisher, but you have to pay. And the cost is generally going to be around $10,000 these days, because what happens is the publisher takes on the risk, and it's a very true risk. As a hybrid publisher, I can tell you for 100%, this is often the case, because authors don't tend to go out and market their book in the same way that they would self-published, or, even through a traditional publisher, because they're like, I already paid. Now I just want to get the money back. But guess what? If you're not marketing your book, you're not going to get that money back. So that's why there is that exchange. And it's unfortunately, there is something mental about paying for a publishing process that makes people feel like they don't have to do anything, but you still do need, I don't care what way you market your book. It does not matter. I mean, what way you publish, you have got to be willing to market your book and get out there and build your audience across the board. It's just critical. And as a hybrid, I actually pay far more than a lot of hybrid presses do into marketing and launch and all kinds of things, because I understand if I'm not doing that work for our authors, it's harder for them too. But I can tell you that I've pumped thousands and thousands of dollars into marketing books. And if the author isn't out there talking about it and going to schools as children's picture books, which this one is, it just won't sell. There's just too much noise.
Yeah. And I think it's becoming, correct me if I'm wrong, becoming more like that with traditional publishing as well. It's like most novels or books that are published are commercial failures.
Yeah.
And only a very few achieve success. So it feels like that's kind of across the board now, that authors have to readjust their mindset, that if you want to make money in the business, no matter what route you go, you have to market your book. That's non-negotiable.
Yeah. And it is true. You will get, okay, so here, this is the benefit of traditional publishing. And I always tell people, if that is your dream, if you are just like, I have to see if I can get my book published by Random House or by Penguin or Tartar or any of those, then you need to go for it. You really do. You need to learn everything you can about submitting the submission process, find an agent, do all the things, and try to go through the process. And when you've gotten to, so one of two things will happen. You will either get a publishing deal someplace, which yay, wonderful, or you will break from the process and decide, okay, I'm not doing this anymore. It's been 3 years. I'm watching all my friends self-publish now their third or fourth book in that same time frame, and blah, blah, blah. Yeah. So, but no matter which way you go, you will be expected to do the marketing. But on the traditional side, the nice thing is they have the inroads still to places that self-pubbed and hybrid companies are still having a hard time dealing with. In fact, a lot of bigger hybrid companies recently have started distributing through Simon & Schuster and other large brand names, so that they have that backing behind them for placement in stores and retailers and things of that nature. That's a whole different topic. So the point is, like, the benefit is that you do have just this path already created for you, and the barriers knocked down. If you want to do a book signing at Barnes and Noble or at any other major bookstore, it's not going to be a problem for you to arrange those, whereas self-published authors have to work a little bit harder to set some of those things up. But you may also receive some level of initial launch, like a PR specialist who's going to get you some media and campaigns and a little bit, but you really do have to be willing to take that up. So no matter what, and when people self-publish, one of my biggest things now through the Women in Publishing Summit is really helping authors and publishing industry professionals understand the business side of being a professional in the world of books and how important it is to learn these skills that just feel like pain in the beginning. Like, who wants to be managing a blog or, doing search engine optimization, or now it's GEO with all of the, I can't remember what the G stands for, but it has something to do with AI and how AI looks at things, with trying to do marketing campaigns, with growing an email list, with running an email CRM, with words you've probably never heard of before in your entire life. But that's where the rubber meets the road on being a dreamer, or maybe screamer works because you feel like you're screaming about your book all the time as you're marketing. But I don't know. I'll have to
I wonder
find
if we
a better
could call
word.
them schemers because you're scheming up how to make it work.
There we
You're a
go. A dreamer or a schemer. You just helped me with my new tagline. Oh yeah, but that's where I spend a lot of my time now. I don't do any writing coaching really, other than with nonfiction authors. I do have a particular area of helping people map out a business plan, basically, for how they can use a book to grow their business or coaching or whatever they're doing. But I don't love writing coaching. I'm not an editor. I'm not a graphic designer, but I can talk all day about publishing. But marketing is it's where people need the most support, really. It really is, because you have to learn how to do it. You really do, if you're going to be successful.
Absolutely. So I do have quite a few questions about the marketing side, but before we get there, because we want to know all the stuff. So let's imagine someone is committed for whatever reason they want to self-publish. What would you say are the non-negotiables, like a developmental editor, a copy editor, a proofreader? Like, what are the non-negotiables that, like, if you want a book that's going to appeal to people, these are the people you need to hire to help you?
Well, it starts even a little farther back than that, and that is really working on your craft. You've got to spend a little bit of time. A huge non-negotiable is knowing your genre. I can't tell you how many people decide that they want to write a romance book and then one of the characters dies at the end or something like that. And their readers will crucify them for that, because there's only one rule with romance. And that is there has to be a happily ever after. There can be a happily for now, but even that can make some readers mad. My last book was a happily for now, and I had some people who were upset about that. Like, we want to know, does this work out or not? And I was like, well, it's a series. They'll continue on. But so you have to know, you have to know, you have to know that in romance, there are big, big things that make a difference between the levels of steam in a book. Is your book clean, no kissing, like that clean? It's just sweet and cute and all that stuff. Or is it like, whoa, do not listen to this book when on Audible when anyone's around you, or, hide when you're, and you cannot blend certain things. And I know romance because I'm a romantic comedy writer, but in other genres, there are similar things. Like, if you do certain things, it's going to really make the readers angry. So it's important to read a lot in your genre. And don't worry, I had somebody tell me one time, well, I'm afraid to read other people's books because I don't want people to think I'm stealing their ideas. I'm here to tell you, it's not possible. I mean, yes, if you can steal people's ideas, that is possible. However, it's not possible like to really steal an idea, because you have to, and this is where working on your craft comes in. Like, they follow the same beats, they follow the same trajectories, they have the same story arcs. Every single romantic comedy is exactly the same story with different characters in different places. It is. Yeah. You have your your meet cute or your inciting incident. They get to know each other. They start building up this little relationship. Then something happens. There's a misunderstanding. She sees him with somebody that she thinks is a girlfriend that's actually his sister. Something happens. They have a falling out. Everybody's mad. Nobody's happy. Then there's a grand gesture or something that happens that brings them back together. And then it wraps up really quickly because they're wonderfully in love and never want to be apart ever again. And both their lives are changed. And that's the story. That is the story every single time. But my romantic comedy is worlds different than anything Emma St. Clair has written, even though they follow the same story. So that's not something you bring the magic as the writer. Oh goodness, I've sidetracked myself there. So yes, learn how to write, learn and improve on it and get better with it. And then comes in the developmental editor. If you are a first-time fiction author, you should not skip developmental editing. It is timely and it can be expensive. It depends. This is one of those things that really do your research around, because developmental editors, like all editors, and Reedsy, Reedsy, is a great source for finding editors. They also have lots of articles about what are normal pricing ranges. You can run a calculator to see, and these are things you should know before hiring somebody to know if they're in that scale. But a developmental editor literally is going to look for holes in your story, character development, making sure that the right beats are happening and that you're doing the things you're supposed to be doing in the right places. So it's important, because that's what makes sure that your story is capturing everything that it needs to. From that point, I use beta readers. Then I send it to a group of 3 to 4 writers that we support each other by doing beta work, but it could also be a reader that that just loves to read and is very, whomever you want to trust to, but just a handful of people. And they're basically going to go through and follow whatever directions you give them. So you can say, just point out major problems, just point out like if, his eyes were blue and then they were green, or some of them will get in and do like a full on copy edit. So, you'll have that. Then I revise, I take the time to revise. After that, I go back and then I send it to, so you've got line editors and copy editors, and some people do both in the same thing. Some people take those as separate, but those are both more in the weeds, going through, checking all the things, grammar, sentence structure, all that. Then you do those revisions, and then there's a proofreader. Is there any place that you can skip? Not in the beginning. I would highly encourage you not to skip maybe the beta reader part, but the beta readers will save you money. So, because beta readers generally do not charge. You can hire beta readers, but I don't know why you would do that, because you may as well just hire an editor if that's what you want to do. But it's as you get better in your writing. So I'm about to launch my 3rd book in my series. I did not do a developmental edit this time because I had 2 really good developmental edits on the first 2 books. And I started to learn what to look for in my own writing. And also my beta readers were great at filling in, catching those things. Mm-hmm. But if I change genres, I'm going to hire a developmental editor again. So, okay, I'm sorry. This is taking a long time, but
but this is all so good. This is what people need to hear. And the idea of, I love what you were saying about hiring a developmental editor. It makes you a better writer. It does. Like, so many writers will not want to invest in, they'll be like, oh my gosh, that's so expensive. But the idea is, on the other side of it, just like you're saying, you hired a developmental editor for the first 2, but now you've got it. You know exactly what you need to be doing. And so you've become much better at writing in that genre.
Exactly. And they point out things that you wouldn't necessarily think about. I mean, I remember my developmental editor on the first 2 books, for some reason, had an obsession with like, what are they called? Accoutrement is the French word, like your accessories. So every time she was in any scene, it was like, where'd her umbrella go? Does she have a purse? They went out here. Why doesn't she have a purse? They're going shopping. Like, I need to know these things. And I was so mad. I was like, these are stupid details. But then I realized, like, these are the kinds of details that put you in their world. And I recognize now, when I'm reading other books or watching, especially especially when I'm watching TV. If the person is running and running from somebody and they had a backpack and they set the backpack down someplace, and I know it has their passport and their money and all that kind of stuff, and then you see them running again or hop into a car and you don't see the backpack, I'm like, where'd the backpack go?
Yeah.
Like, that has all their money. What are they going to do? So it does matter.
It does matter. Yeah.
And so those are the types of things that you may miss and overlook. Also, there was a major party scene inside an apartment, and she wanted to know, like, okay, I don't understand where they're at. Draw me a map, or no, here's the map that I think they're in. Is this accurate? And at first I was like, this is really, really. And then I was like, no, it matters, because you want your readers to feel like they are in the room. And so that kind of stuff really does matter. But I do want to be very, very transparent, though. And that is that it takes a number of years and books to build a significant enough of a following to make enough money to pay yourself back for all of these. I'll be very honest. In my first two fiction romantic comedies, I invested probably close to $5,000 in editing alone, in editing, proofreading, and formatting. I have come nowhere near to $5,000 in sales in either of those books. But I look at it like the third one's about to come out. I've already got more pre-orders for the third one than I did for either of the first two books, and my network is growing. People are growing. They're starting to talk about it. Like my books are getting better. And when I hit that fourth and fifth and sixth book, and now you have this whole backlog, and when people find you, they come back and they get all the other books, like, it does start to grow. So there is a really weird misperception in the self-published author world that you shouldn't spend any money. You shouldn't have to pay for anything in publishing, which I don't know where that came from. I mean, I think that came from people watching, that the big traditional people get published and they get a $500,000 advance and aren't paying for anything. But that's not the way this world works. This is, you have chosen to create a product. That product requires investment to get that product out into the world. And like almost all businesses, you wouldn't expect to profit from a coffee shop on day one, right? I mean, you had to pay the rent, you have to pay the employees, you had to buy the cash register, you had to buy the coffee and the cups and all those kinds of things. So it may be a year or two or three before you're operating at a profit rather than a loss. And that's part of the business cap, is understanding that.
I love that. It's really what you were saying about that entrepreneurial mindset. I know when I started my developmental editing and book coaching business, I have invested many, 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 many thousands of dollars into things that teach me to be a better editor. And it took a long time to start seeing any of that come back, but it's still the same thing. It's a business. You're investing. You're making yourself better at what you do, and you can't. What is it? The old saying: you can't make money unless you spend money. It is true, and
it is very true.
Works the same with being an author entrepreneur.
It is very true. But, it's same. And I joke around with people all the time when they're like, oh my gosh, you charge $300 for an hour session or whatever. And I'm like, listen, in 1 hour, and that's inexpensive, by the way, for a lot of industries. But I'm like, in 1 hour, I can teach you the things that I have spent probably $200,000 learning.
Yes.
So
yes.
Now, how does $300 sound?
That's exactly it. When writers don't, naturally they're like, wow, that's a lot of money. They don't know the amount of money that professional and time and money that professional has spent gathering the information that they are so seamlessly giving to you. You know, it seems simple. It's not simple. There was so much study and money and time that went into that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I apologize. I'm sitting over here. I mean, I know I was explaining for the audience, but I knew you were a book coach. I don't think I realized you were a developmental editor. So go to Heather for your developmental editing, not Reedsy.
Well, you can also I do speculative fiction. This is the Speculative Fiction Made Simple Writing podcast. So if you have speculative fiction, bring it to me. I would love to developmental edit it.
I don't think
But
I even
Reese's
know what
great too.
speculative fiction is.
It's like all the fun stuff. Isn't that terrible that I just said that? Because I suddenly no, it's like horror and fantasy and sci-fi and
Okay. Okay.
all the fun stuff.
All the fun stuff. Well, there you go. I just learned something new.
All right. So let's talk. So marketing. Oh my God. This is what so
Oh, wait. I got to finish
email.
answering.
Oh yeah, you've
I
got
got
to
to finish. So the editing, we got stuck there for a little while, but cover
Editing.
design, do
Yes.
not ever design your own cover unless you are a professional cover designer. Just don't do it.
Yeah, and not just that you think you're a professional cover designer and you think that you can ask
Like
AI
you
to
are.
do it or
No,
No.
no. There are so many
Yeah.
things that your brain doesn't recognize are happening in a cover
Yes.
design with the placement and all that. Anyway, we don't want to spend a whole lot of time there. You can, however, use some of the tools out there that are less expensive, like a book brush or Canva or some of those to create a mock-up cover so that you can start marketing as early as possible, but do not skip out on the real deal. And there are so many cool, especially for fiction writers, there are so many cool companies that now do like pre-made covers, which means you spend a lot less money on them. They cost between $50 and $200 because the concept is already created, and then they just make it personalized to your book and your story, and but they don't duplicate the same cover, so you still get an original cover. That's a way to go. Anyway, okay, so those two things, and then formatting. So formatting is one of those things where you can do it yourself, but I would encourage you not to do it through the Word document, which is how I started, because in formatting, there's a lot of HTML behind it, especially with the ebook. And if you don't know precisely how to do that, format that document, it'll look crazy. But there are some great tools. There's Vellum, there's Atticus, and I think somebody told me that Reedsy does a free formatting, but I'm not 100%. I need to look that up. There are some places that will format your book for free, or you can hire companies that have self-publishing assist, all the things. But formatting is important. It breaks my heart when I want to support one of my self-published authors and I go to their event or their book signing or receive their book and it's not properly justified. The words are all running together. They look funky. There's like, the chapter starts in a weird place. So just pay somebody to do it. It's not that expensive, or you can get Vellum if you're going to do lots of books. I love Vellum. I love Vellum. It's, I think, about a $250 lifetime license, but you load your Microsoft document up in there. You give it some parameters. I want this style of chapter heading, blah, blah, blah. It parses it out. It puts it in the thing. It makes it look pretty. And then it gives you the PDF and all the EPUBs and everything perfectly formatted so you can load it to all the places. Even if you only do one book, that's worth the cost.
For sure. Absolutely. And especially if you plan to publish several books, what a steal that is, honestly, for something that you're going to use and need.
So those are the non-negotiables. And then marketing, I encourage you to hire somebody or to take a really good program or to get my book, my marketing program, to get somebody's to help you figure out how to market your book.
And so we hear a lot about author platform and an email list and things like that. What is author platform, and do we need an email list? Does it need to be Substack? What can you sort some of these things out for writers who've probably heard a lot of these terms and might not know exactly what to do?
Of all the non-negotiables in marketing, building your own email list is the number one. It just is. It's the only thing you own. It's the only thing you fully control. Now, granted, on a web-based system, everything can go down at any point in time. So make sure that you do download your email list from time to time so you have that information in case something ever happens. But for the most part, they're pretty safe and secure. But you can get booted or blacklisted off of every social media profile. You can lose access to Substack. We don't know how long Substack will be free. So if you're spending a lot of time over there, what I generally do is use Substack because it is such a great tool at audience building, and it really, really is good at that. And I do encourage Substacks, but I also provide lead magnets and things to get them over to my email list through that. But an email list, I can tell you just from watching years of launches with my clients that the people who had an appropriate email list and were using it regularly and were building it and it was the right target audience, I mean, there's no comparison at the difference on launch day in numbers from, an average of maybe, guys, this is the hard part here. Self-published authors who don't do the work to build up and launch their books properly are only seeing anywhere from like 5 to 30 sales on launch day. Like it's almost abysmal. If you're not, it is. And so then you've got people who have grown email lists, who have done the work, who have built a reader team, who, are doing these kinds of things, and they're selling between 200 and 1,500 or, whatever, depending on the size of their email list. It makes a big difference. It really does. And as you grow, it makes an even bigger difference because now you've got potential launch team members. You've got people who are interested in what you're doing. You've got a collaboration tool. This is something that a lot of people don't think about. But when you have an email list, and micro influencers are just as important as people with huge lists. So a 500 really engaged person list can be more impactful than 100,000 people on your email list that don't ever open or engage or take any action. But that's why tracking your stats and seeing your click rates and open rates and all these things, again, the mind blowing, like, I don't want to think about those things. I just want to write books. It's part of it, though. Those are important because then I can go to Heather and I can say, hey, we write the same kind of books. We have the same kind of audience. I would love to collaborate with you. Do you want to run some, here's my email list size. I can feature you if you'll feature me, or even better yet, let's go find our 3 other friends and bring them in and all of us put our book on sale and all of us will run an email to all of our lists with all 5 of our books on sale. So there's just a lot of opportunities that you can come up with cross promotion, but you have to have something to, because I'm sorry to say this is rude, but it's the truth. I don't want to partner with somebody when I've spent a lot of time and energy to grow a huge email list, or even a small email list that's active and I know people are clicking and doing things, for someone who has no audience at all and has made no effort. There's no win-win to that. Whereas someone who so here's the question, but I'm brand new. You can still build an email list before you've published a book. And it's a matter of creating the content and the things to drive people there. Give them your first chapter, give them a novella that goes along with it. Give them, all you have to do is put your mock cover with the description on it and say, hey, this book is coming out fall 2026. If you're interested in learning about it or potentially receiving a free advanced review copy, sign up for my email list. And then you just have to keep communicating with them from time to time so that they don't forget who you are. Tell them about the process. Share the cover with them. Ask them, do you like this cover or that cover? Bring them into the experience with you so that they are now becoming a part of your community. And they're going to be a lot more excited about marketing for you and with you and sharing about you. But then it gives you the seeds. But if you're like, I've been working hard to build my list, I am new, a lot of authors will pay it backwards or forwards or whatever and still do collaborations with you. But you've got to make sure you're doing whatever you can to help that author out as well. Share their book on social, add it to your bookshelves on Goodreads, post a review on the book, buy their book and tell other people about it. Those are all things that you can do that still help authors that have those things to do that. So marketing is critical, and building, you asked what a platform is. So let me go back to that. The platform is not your social platform, what you stand for and what you die for and what you like and love. It is literally all the place. It can be, that can totally be part of your author background, especially if your books have a social justice kind of nature. But what we're talking about right now is your where people find you,
Yeah.
how people, your website, your social media, and all of those things. And a good platform, one, you should have the handles everywhere because you never know how things are going to evolve. For example, right now, I spend most of my time on Instagram, but I can see a day where TikTok might be more prevalent in my marketing than Instagram or Threads or whatever, or YouTube or any of those. So I go ahead and I set up an account everywhere. Because the other thing is you don't know where the readers who want to share about you will be. So Heather might be predominantly on Threads. And if she's read my book and wants to share with the world about my book, I want her to be able to tag me. And I want there to be a profile so that when people click on that profile and go over and they're like, oh, this lady looks cool. She writes the kind of books I like. And oh, here's a link to her website. Boom, and get on over there. And now they're on my website. And now they're on my email list. And now all of these things happen. So it's important to have all of those places, even if you're not actively posting on all of them. But you want to build engagement and excitement. And before you have a book, the way you do that is you think like the reader. If I was a reader scrolling through Instagram right now, what would make me stop and engage on a post related to the kind of books? Who would I be following? What kind of things would I be doing? Would I like to answer questions? Would I like to look at reels? Would I like to? And you start testing and creating content that's for the reader of all the other books that are like yours. You can review other books and share about those books on your social media because that's bringing over the people that would like that book and getting them in your audience so that when your book is ready, you're now able to say, oh, by the way, guess what? I know you loved this book and this book and this book, and now here's my book, and it looks a lot like all of those other books. So
I love that. And how early, like, let's say there's a writer who's working on something. They don't really know. Maybe it's a year out. Maybe it's 2 years out. I don't know. Maybe they're a slow writer. How early should a writer who wants to self-publish start thinking, oh, now it's time to build my platform. Now it's time to start my email list and put, get all my stuff on social media and start talking about my upcoming book?
The day you start writing words on paper. Like once you kind of know, and listen, this is where branding is important, and think about what's going to carry you throughout. Okay, so here's a great example. I started a book 7 years ago. It's a historical fiction set in France during the World War II. And I've written 60,000 words in this book, but in the meantime, COVID happened and I couldn't take any more darkness. Like that's a heavy time. That's a heavy time. And while I love it and I'm obsessed with it, like I couldn't read about it. I couldn't write about it. And that's when I started writing romantic comedies. It was a depressing world. I was reading these books that were just making me laugh like crazy. And I was like, this is what I want, this feeling right here. And I was going through a divorce and I was like, I just want happily ever after. I just want happy things. So where's my point with that? Well, I started marketing and building a readers group based on historical fiction at the very beginning, but I didn't brand myself under the book title or genre. So I came up with actually it's a different pen name now, but I decided what name I was going to write under. And we get asked all the time, should I write under a pen name? There's two main reasons to write under a pen name. One, you don't want people to know who you are for whatever reason, even if it's like you don't care if your friends and family know who you are, you just don't want to be searchable. Like if somebody sees a book, you don't want them to be come back to you, or maybe you don't want people to know at all who you are for various reasons. Or two, you don't want to confuse brands. So if you think back, I told you when I started writing, I wrote books on grief and loss, and I wrote books on parenting, and I write reference books for writers on marketing and writing and all that kind of stuff. The last thing in the world I wanted was for people to come across my happy little romantic comedy set in Paris, 4 days in Paris, and go to my Amazon page and be like, why would I follow this person? Look at this whole list of books. It has nothing to do with this book. This is not the right person for me.
Yeah.
So I started writing under Lexi Haddock. And now when you follow Lexi Haddock, it is nothing but travel and romance and, things that will bring in that audience. And so that's the pen name thing. So I set everything up under Lexi Haddock, and didn't brand under genre or name, did brand under author name, because you don't know where you're going to go, and you may transition through books and all that kind of stuff. So try to brand under your name and do it whatever name you're writing under, because that's what people are going to be searching for, and you want to be found the easiest way possible. You don't want them to be trying to remember, although some people remember by book names too. So you can also get the book name URL, but have it forward to your main website, which should be your name. So there's so many things like that. But the point is to think about all of these things and to set the foundation. It takes years to build a following. It really does.
Yeah.
Unless you want to pay a lot of money in other ways. It takes a long time to build that. And if you can build a grassroots movement with readers and followers from the beginning and get them engaged in your process by the time the book is ready for pre-order or for sale or however you decide to launch it, you will have people that are invested in your journey. And you don't want to have to try and start building an audience, once it's been written, because there's another very good reason for this. If you don't know your audience yet, you might be writing the wrong book. And what I mean by that is that people make assumptions. Again, if they don't know their genres, if they haven't done their research, you may be making assumptions about your book and the types of things in your book and the audience. So if you're not really clear on that audience and starting to talk to them and get feedback and advice and all of that kind of stuff, when your book is done, you may find that you've written, instead of a romantic comedy, you've written I don't know, what's a better, like a women's, like a literary fiction.
Yeah.
And those things matter.
Yeah, for sure.
So it almost sounds like especially if you're going the self-publishing route, that really starting with genre, almost, forget starting with a book idea, start with the genre and say, where within this genre, then I can create my book idea. Because so many writers I know, they have a book idea and they're like, I don't know where it fits, right? But it's almost about reversing that and saying, where is it going to fit? And now let me think of ideas within that.
It absolutely is.
Yeah.
It absolutely is. This is where understanding business and marketing really comes down to it. And I'm talking to the people right now who want to build a business from writing books. And that is that, think of it like a business. If you wanted to open up a fast food restaurant, what would you do? You would go out, you would look, and you would see where people are spending their money. Are they going to the chicken place? Are they going to the burger place? Are they going here? And then you're like, okay, this area, there's always a line at Chick-fil-A. McDonald's is always empty. We need another chicken place. And they do that kind of market analysis. It's the same with writing books. You may have on your heart, and I'm going to tell you too, you got to write the heart books. Even though I don't know why I write romantic comedy, like historical fiction and thriller are my jam, right? That's what I've always read. That's what I love the most. But my characters would not shut up. They were like, we are writing these books, lady, get with the program. And I couldn't write anything else until I had these characters out into the world, right? Yeah. So sometimes you got to do that. But luckily I picked a genre that's hot and happening. And, romantic comedy is really just going up and up and up. But if you're like, I just like to creative write, I have some story ideas, do some exploration, go out and see what's trending, what people are really excited about, and don't be afraid to do what's called writing to market. You're still writing a great book. You're still writing your ideas, but you've decided, okay, what I'm noticing right now is that everybody in the world is writing romantic comedies about hockey. Maybe I should write about hockey, a hockey romance. And let's start there and see how it goes. And this is important because it gives you a little bit of a bump in the beginning. get your fans, build your audience, do all that kind of stuff. And then if all you really wanted to write was, I don't know, vampire romance, you can shift. And it's a harder shift, obviously, going that big of a jump. But if I think about some of my favorite authors, and they are like Kristen Hanna and Colleen Hoover, and some names that you may recognize. And they have, like, Colleen Hoover has two very distinct, like, she's got a couple that are straight up thrillers and some that are romance and more that are like sad romance. And, you know, so she's not defined to, she's a women's fiction writer, right? So now fantasy, you can't, and speculative fiction, I would guess you can't just as easily blend in there. But I'm sure you can think of someone who's primarily in one genre and wants to write another genre. But if it's so different that you're afraid your audience is going to be upset, then you just start another pen name and you pull people over. You tell your audience, these are my books. If you love me and want to read everything that I'm writing, come follow me here. But then you can have that marketing tool. So that I don't want people to get, that's a lot. Don't think about that right now. That's far in the future and a lot to think about. So right now, just think about what can you do to set yourself up for the best successes possible with the idea that you have? How can you take that idea and make it fit into a genre that's really hot right now? And that is a good way to get yourself going. And if not, write to get better at writing, and just start writing and write the story that you wanted to write, and have your developmental editor help you, and your other editors help you get it to a point where it's marketable, and then build from there. So what I want you to take is that there's no one way to do this. And anybody who tells you there's only one way to do all of this stuff is full of crap. Even when it comes to editing, like, there are rules, but all rules can be broken in the appropriate places, you know?
So true. So true. All right, Alexa, if you could give listeners one final piece of advice, one important reminder about self-publishing, what would you tell them? Like, the one thing.
Don't give up. It's going to take time to get there, but keep going, because no overnight success was actually an overnight success. It's anywhere between 5 to 20 years of building something before you finally get there. And don't let that discourage you, because time moves so fast. Just keep plugging away every day. Learn and grow, learn and grow, learn and grow. And you will get there.
I love that. Thank you so much, Alexa. And it's been such a wonderful experience today. I know I've learned a lot. I hope our listeners have learned a lot. And you said you do have a gift for our listeners. Would you like to tell us a little more about it?
Depending on where you'd rather go, Write, Publish, Sell, or Women in Publishing Summit, you can go to either one of those websites, womenInPublishingSummit.com/RTP, like Romeo Tango Papa, or writepublishsell.com/RTP. And what you'll get is a download there that has a breakdown of the different routes to publishing. It's got a little teeny tiny snippet about starting your author marketing, and it's got an explanation of distribution and how all of that works. But it's a good guide to get you started with the publishing knowledge and all of that kind of stuff. That'll get you on either email list. And I will say that Write, Publish, Sell has more frequent information on publishing and all of that kind of stuff that comes out. The Women in Publishing Summit, we have a ton of stuff going on, and educational things too. So I hope you'll join us.
Absolutely. And there will be a link for that right in the show notes, so you don't have to go far if you'd like to zoom on over there and get that lovely free handout. I'm sure that will be very helpful. And Alexa, thank you again for being here today. It was such a pleasure.
Thank you so much, Heather. This was fantastic.
Okay, my friends, that's it for today. Please take a moment to subscribe to the podcast if you haven't done so already. And can you do me a favor? Can you share it with a writer friend? It would really help the podcast grow, and it might even help said friend make a writing breakthrough. So the way I see it, that's a win-win situation. Until next time, keep writing, keep dreaming, and remember, the world needs your stories right now. So don't you dare give up on your novel or yourself. Talk soon.